In this video, we're going to talk about what units of measurement are, and we're going to show you how to convert from one unit to a different unit in science. We use units in science to indicate what we're measuring, and so different units are used to measure different quantities. The SI, which is the sort of governing body for units, has 7 base units, and then other units are derived from these units. Length is measured in meters, mass in kilograms. The base unit of time is a second. Current, which is how much electrical charge is moving per time, is ampere. Temperature is Kelvin, not degrees C. Amount of substance is a mole. And then the luminous intensity is the candela. We're not going to really look at candela or current too much in chemistry. However, the other units we are going to focus on. Okay, so we need to know unit prefixes because oftentimes when we measure something, we may not want to put it into a unit because we may be measuring small amounts of a substance or large amounts of a substance, and so measuring using different units, which are prefix units, will help. So will help us keep the numbers reasonable. So, for example, if I was going to measure something very, very small, I might use nanometers, like something like a bond, how long a bond is between two atoms. I might use nanometers because that's a really small unit. And 1 nanometer, there are 10 to the 9 or a billion nanometers in one meter. So if I have a little n before my unit, whether it's so like nm would be nanometers, then that indicates I'm using the unit of nanometers, and I'm probably measuring something pretty small. If I were measuring, the distance between two cities, I might use kilometers, because I want a bigger unit. And why? Because there's 1/1000th of a kilometer in a meter, which means there's 1,000 kilometers in a meter. These tables get confusing to students because of these numbers here, and they never know what to put in for these when they're converting. The way I like to do it when I'm converting is I like to say, well, which is bigger, the base unit, the base unit, or the unit I'm going to, and then I'm always using whole numbers and not fractions. So like this is confusing right here. There's 10 to the minus 9 gigabytes in a byte, or that means there's 10 to the 9 bytes in a gigabyte. That confuses students. I just tell my students, which is bigger, a gigabyte or a byte? Everyone seems to understand that a gigabyte is bigger than a byte. And then I said, well, how many gigabytes then, or how many bytes then are in 1 gigabyte? So give the bigger unit 1 and say how many of the other are in it. Makes it easier. So this is useful to remember, and really these prefixes are the ones that you use most often in say, a chemistry class. So I say, if I say, so what's bigger, a nanometer or a meter? And if I want to know, so if I'm going, say, between nanometers and meters, I say, well, which is bigger, a nanometer or a meter? And then they all say a nanometer. And I'm going to move this over. And then I say, okay, well then give the bigger number 1. So give it 1, and then say how many nanometers in a meter? Well, okay, there's 10 to the 9th or a billion nanometers in a meter. I'm going to say if you were going from millimeters or micrometers to nanometers, and then you say, well, which is bigger, a micrometer or a nanometer? Well, a micrometer is bigger than a nanometer, so give it 1 and say how many nanometers are in 1 micrometer? Well, there's a difference of 10 to the 3. See, here's 10 to the 9 nanometers are in a meter. 10 to the 6 micrometers are in a meter. So there's 1,000 or 10 to the 3 micrometers in a nanometers. It's usually easier to go to the base unit first, and that's what I tell my students to do, and then go from one to the other. So let's not dwell over this too long. Let's just do a little practice, and let's start with a really easy one. Okay, convert 26.2 centimeters to meters. Okay, that's pretty easy, and students are often tempted to just like, well, let's scoot the decimal over or something like that. We want to use what's called the factor label method to convert. So let me show you how that works. You start with what you know, 26.2 centimeters, and then I'm going to write equals however many meters. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is multiply 26.2 centimeters by conversion factors, because it's important to know that units in science act like algebraic variables. So if I'm in centimeters and I need centimeters to go away, I need to put centimeters in the denominator. That will be centimeters divided by centimeters will make those go away, because that equals 1. And then I'm going to put the unit that I want to go to in the numerator. So this is called a conversion factor right here, okay? This is called a conversion factor. It's going to allow me to convert from one unit to the other, conversion factor. And those two lengths have to be the same, okay? So it's almost like timesing it by 1. So now this is when I use like how many meters in a centimeter or vice versa. So I say, which is bigger? Well, most people, which is bigger, a centimeter or a meter? A meter. Okay, give it 1. Okay, how many centimeters are in 1 meter? 100. Oh, okay. So I put 100 here. See, that's equal. 100 centimeters is equal to a meter. So it's like, since the two units are the same, or two lengths are the same, they're different units, but the lengths are the same, it's like multiplying by 1. Okay, so now what do I do on my calculator to make this happen? I hit 26.2 times 1 divided by 100. Okay, and then I get 0.262, 0.262 meters. So that means that there's 0.262 meters in 26.2 centimeters, or there's 26.2 centimeters is equal to 0.262 meters. Note how the units behave like variables. The centimeters will cancel each other out. Okay, so that's important. Okay, let the units cancel each other out. All right, so let's do some basic ones again. Okay, one more basic one, and then I'm going to stop the video because I know that last video went on a little too long. So let's do 33.8 liters to milliliters. Okay, so note there's no prefix on the L, that's a volume unit, liter, and there's no prefix on the M, or I mean the M is the prefix of the other unit, of the other liter, so that is a milliliter. I need to know how many milliliters are in a liter to do this problem. Okay, so I start with what I'm given, 33.8 liters, and then I multiply that by some conversion factor that I need to, in order to get liters, some conversion factor. So I need to get, or milliliters, I need to get rid of liters, so I put liters in the denominator, and I need to go to milliliters, so I put milliliters in the numerator, and then I say, well, which is bigger, a milliliter or a liter? Are there a bunch of milliliters in a liter, or are there a bunch of liters in a milliliter? Well, we know a milliliter is smaller, and if you can't remember, just, you know, you've got to become familiar with this guy right there, you got, or sorry, this guy right here, you got to become familiar with this chart here, okay? It's going to help you out, okay? So I see, here's milli right here, okay? And there's 1,000 milliliters in a liter. So I'm going to write, which is bigger, milliliter or liter? A liter is. So give it one. One liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. Okay, so in this case, the liters cancel. So my unit will finish being milliliters, which is what I want. And I say, in my calculator, I type 33.8 times 1,000. Now, I know that you can do that in your head, but this helps. I'll write it in blue. This helps when you get more confusing problems, which I'll do one. So I get 33,800 milliliters is equal to 33.8 liters. All right? So let's do one where, like, you know, oh, you can't just use the easy, simple 1,000 factor. Let's do one like this. Convert 99.4 kilopascals to millimeters of mercury. And you might say, oh my gosh, he's just gone from easy to like impossible in one example problem. I'm shutting down my chemistry mind. Don't do that. I'm going to give you the conversion factor, right? So given, those are pressure units, by the way. And so you got to make sure that the units measure the same thing, or else you can't convert from one to the other. Okay, so given that there are 101.3 kilopascals of pressure in 760 millimeters of mercury pressure. Okay, so those are equivalent. So because those two units, those two amounts of pressure are the same, I can write those as a fraction, and it's like dividing by or multiplying by 1. So I'm going to start with what I know, 99.4 kilopascals. Yeah. And then I'm going to say, well, what unit do I need to keep, and what do I need to get rid of? What am I going to? I'm going to millimeters of mercury. That means I got to get rid of kilopascals. So I'm going to put that in the denominator. I'm going to put millimeters of mercury in the numerator. So you haven't even done gas laws and you can convert. It's not a problem. Okay, so now I say, well, I got to multiply that by an equivalent amount, the conversion factor, and I gave you the conversion factor in the problem. Okay, there are 101.3 kilopascals equal to 760 millimeters of mercury. So what do you type in on your calculator? You type in 99.4 times 760 divided by 101.3. And that will give you 745.7, which will rhyme to 746 millimeters of mercury. Note the kilopascals cancel. Where did I get that? I got the conversion factor went in here. It was written as a fraction, and I can choose which way to write it based on what I'm converting from what to what. So I'd really like to stop there and have you guys, or have maybe give you an opportunity to practice some conversion factors before we do a couple that are more difficult. So why don't you do 38 inches to centimeters given 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 inch. How about 80.5 minutes to seconds? And how about 15.4 milliliters to liters. And then I'll give you one that's a little more complicated and see if you can do it. Let's do 16.8 microliters to milliliters. Okay? And I'm going to stop it there. And the next video I'll go over those 4 problems.